Broadcasting live from somehow not only the only DCEU movie to crack $1 billion, but the highest grossing DC movie ever. This is Pop Culture Reference, your one-stop reference for all things pop culture. I'm one of your hosts, super tight ponytail Seamus Connolly.
And I am Willem Dafoe if he drowned at the end of Life Aquatic and became a merman. Garrett's brother.
I thought you were going to pull something like Willem Dafoe's weird lighthouse guy hallucination from the lighthouse.
There you go.
Something. Oh, God. Well, we're back, folks. Can you believe it? With those lazy Willem Dafoe jokes, we did it.
He got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame this morning, Seamus. So
is that true?
That is absolutely true. As Dave recording,
hell?
Obviously.
That's crazy. That is, good for him. He deserves it. I figured out over the break he is maybe my favorite actor right now. I think I had that epiphany while watching Asteroid City.
And we will go ahead and get started with some news. It's been a long time since we've recorded. This is our first podcast of 2024, and in the interim since our last episode came out, some news has come out about Vin Diesel, oft talked about figure on this show that does not seem super great. We don't usually cover this kind of thing on the show, but he's been such a big part of the show for so long that we felt we had to mention it. We aren't going to get into details here. We are not journalists. We don't purport to be, but we encourage the audience to educate themselves about what's going on with the ongoing litigation, and I certainly am saddened to hear the accusations that have been leveled against him because they are severe and damning.
Yeah, we've had plenty of time since this news started to come out and since we've recorded again, and just a lot of what I've been thinking about is, for as much as we talk about Vin Diesel on this show, we do this podcast and those silly marathon things. We are championing people at their best. We're not defending anybody at their worst. There will be no weird backpedaling. We'll see what is gonna come out of this in the most factual way and deal with it.
Absolutely, we will. But moving on to a more normal news segment, we do have some unfortunate news still up top. A legendary character actor Tom Wilkinson has unfortunately passed away. Very sad news. One of my favorite That guys. Love him, obviously, in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. An amazing performance in Michael Clayton, a movie I've still not gotten you to watch. And also Ben Franklin on the HBO miniseries John Adams alongside Paul Giamatti.
I actually did not know that he did the John Adams thing. I truly maybe only know him from Ghost Protocol. When he came up in that movie, I did have that moment of like, oh yeah, I've seen this guy in maybe a million different things, but I truly couldn't put my finger on anything except for Mission Impossible right now.
I know how much you love the grand, exotic, best Marigold Hotel, Grand Budapest.
Oh yeah, sure. No. I was like, yeah, dog, yeah, me too. Sure.
No, it's all the old British people that are in a hotel in India, and Maggie Smith is there, and Judi Dench is there, and Tom Wilkinson, I'm pretty sure, is there.
Dude, no, you could be making all this up right now, and I would probably believe you.
He's also probably best known for his role in The Full Monty. He's one of the guys in The Full Monty. He also is in the Grand Budapest Hotel. It just occurs to me he is.
Yeah, I mean that's what I thought you were doing a bit there. Yeah, man, he's in a lot of hotel things, a lot of big long name hotel things.
The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel is exactly what it's called.
Well, I know I'm gonna try to round up a few more of his roles here in my own repertoire. I mean, Michael Clayton, like you said, when I was looking into more of his filmography today, when prepping for all this, I did notice that Michael Clayton was on there, and that has been recommended many, many a time. So I've got to actually sit down and get into that one.
Another big passing, but one that is more of a celebration of life, as Glynis Johns has passed away at age 100, certainly known best for her role as Mrs. Banks in the original Mary Poppins. I love her from 90s comedies The Ref and While You Were Sleeping. I don't know if you've seen either of those, Seamus.
No, I have not, actually. I took another look through her filmography as well today, and I really just knew Mary Poppins, maybe. I was just so impressed that I kind of skimmed her entire career there, and she was doing like 2 to 4 movies or shows a year at one point, and it's just so impressive to see the diversity of her work all laid out there in front of me like that.
She's a great talent. While You Were Sleeping is a terrific ensemble cast. Chicago-based rom-com, Sandra Bullock, Bill Pullman. You would dig it a lot, I think. And my father would be mad at me if I didn't mention her starring role alongside Danny Kaye in The Court Jester, a movie I have never made it all the way through, but he assures me is wonderful.
I do love Danny Kaye. I mean, I would watch that. You want to sit down with Jay and throw that one on?
I mean, why not?
We just had an episode about Willy Wonka where I was like, I was an idiot and I thought this was like a boring movie. You know, yeah. We all come around one day, Garrett.
We all eat crow on this podcast.
Oh, almost all the time, actually.
But you know who never eats crow, Seamus?
Who is that, Garrett?
An Amazon attack!
Warning, Amazon attack.
Oh, God!
You're in danger, pop culture reference.
Amazon Prime Video is going to start showing ads on their programming unless you pay an extra $3 a month for your Prime Video subscription. I already watch so many ads on Amazon Prime Video. I thought that was already kind of what happens there. It's kind of a bummer that they're just like, oh no, that was already the good stuff. Now we're doubling down unless you pay more. That really does suck.
I'm perplexed by this in a similar fashion that I am to Apple TV's price hike, where I was like, the whole appeal to me initially with Apple TV was it's cheap and it's not a ton of content, but it's all good. And now that they're expanding into these giant awards movies, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, I understand where that is coming from, but similarly, Amazon is positioned where Amazon Prime Video has always kind of existed as a bonus. You have your Amazon Prime account.
Yeah, exactly.
And now the fact that you're going to be penalized for not giving, by and large, a few extra bucks a month is frustrating, to say the least.
Like I said, there's already like a pretty good amount of ads, even if it is more of the like, you know, they throw in a good, 100 seconds of ads right at the beginning of something, and then they let you pretty much go about your time watching whatever, but it doesn't feel good. As I have been, I suppose, as I have been using Amazon less and less, this extra $3 a month is just not looking good on their part for me to stick around and care more or care about it enough over other streaming services to pay it.
They also already have Freevee, which is like Crackle, where you watch ads to watch a movie without a subscription, and I feel like that was a slippery slope. When we watched Riddick on Freevee for episode 100.
Oh my god.
We were telling them, yes, we will watch ads, Amazon Prime. It's our fault. It's the podcast's fault, Seamus.
This would have felt better if they were just like, Amazon Prime as a whole is going up by $3, because then you could justify that with like, well, it's Amazon Music and all the stuff with the retail and how Amazon Prime Video has been. But as it stands, as its own little slice of the Amazon Prime pie there, that it's wild to me.
I guess that's really the secret, is they don't want you to pay the $3. They would rather have you as ad revenue.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's just enough where people are probably going to be like, I'll just watch the ads. Well, we cracked the code, Garrett, and by we, I mean you did, as I was sitting here complaining about Amazon Prime Video. You were the Poirot, where like I'm the Book who said like just a regular phrase, and you're like, say that again. I am going to crack this case.
We have not talked about Poirot enough since October, so
I agree.
We're bringing it back. Speaking of Willem Dafoe and exotic locales, you want to go ahead and move on over into our main segment, Aquaman: the first Aquaman.
Oh god, let's finally do it. For today's main segment, we are talking about James Wan's Aquaman. What a strange movie to revisit, I will say. And for you, the first time, which I'm excited to hear your thoughts about on that. But we don't often on this show, I feel like we really try to avoid the DCEU, save for your Black Adams and your Snyder cuts, because those were both, I think you could agree, both equally cultural touchstones of their time. But this
I know
is,
which one I think about more, Seamus.
Yeah. Well, with Aquaman, I'll tell you, Garrett, I was thinking a lot more about Justice League, and what an absolute joyless experience those movies are. I would like to hear your thoughts as a first-timer here, as somebody who has just, I don't know if you've purposefully avoided it as much as you've just, like, never cared enough to watch it.
I just don't care. You ready? This is going to be the shortest podcast ever. I already sent you this review, but for the listeners at home, you know what? Why not? Why not Aquaman, Seamus?
yeah, you know, I said this before to you as well. It's like, I was thinking about Black Panther 2, a movie that came out years after, and what is arguably a way more successful franchise. And I kind of don't hate Aquaman, you know? I thought it was a good amount of fun. The fight scenes were more fun than the fight scenes in Black Panther 2. I don't quite care for the romance of it all. But
I think it has its moments, though, and we'll get into that a little bit more in spoilers.
But yeah, performances, pretty solid. Like, and I know I already mentioned it's James Wan, so I don't even have to tell you that Patrick Wilson is here, but he's killing it.
He's great. He's
Willem
terrific.
Dafoe is killing it.
Willem Dafoe is he's like an alien. He's like one of the Galaxy Quest aliens. He's this weird robot man.
Once I kind of sank myself more into, like, he's doing Elrond from Lord of the Rings.
He's doing Elrond.
He's just like, he's stoic elf, kind of like, he is guiding the next generation. I liked the more fantasy stuff than I remembered the first time I watched this. This is only the second time I've seen it, but I enjoyed it even more than the first time. I was in for all the weird fantasy, the kingdoms, the politics. I was there.
Well, what I think I'll highlight as my first kind of reaction was how much I really appreciated the things that this was influenced by. You could actually see the influence on the movie, because you hear a lot of talk about how Peyton Reed was really influenced by Ocean's 11 when he was making Ant-Man, and I'm like, that's not true, because it's not in the movie. That's not in the movie.
We would be able to tell if that was true.
That's a phrase you hear a lot now, specifically with this genre, this superhero genre of, well, we were influenced by all these great films, these classic films. And a mythos, we hear that all the time, that the Marvel is the new pantheon of myth.
Sure.
And here you actually have James Wan, who has clearly seen the first Superman 1 million times, a movie you have not seen.
A movie that I am looking at unplayed right in front of me right now.
I was going to say, it's sitting on my Blu-ray shelf, but no, my Blu-ray is sitting on your Blu-ray shelf.
Yes, it is.
That is so evidently an influence on this movie, and then obviously all of the Lovecraftian, Arthurian influence of actual mythology, and you were talking about the kingdoms. I mean, Lord of the Rings totally is in this. It's more probably the fact that Tolkien was influenced by the same myths that Wan is influenced by. But then, of course, also, I think kind of this would have been the broadcasting location if the fact that we used as a broadcasting location weren't so insane. The fact that the opening line of this movie is, Jules Verne once wrote...
Oh my god, dude, I laughed so hard because I did not remember that at all. I blocked that out somehow.
In Jason Momoa's, like, California voice, it cracks me up.
So wild.
But, you know what? I see all of that in this movie. I see the stuff that it's claiming to be influenced by. It has a paint-by-numbers story arc, but it has a solid, tried and true hero's journey. He is Arthur. He's the reluctant king. It's great. It's such a good device that most superhero movies, in the contemporary world are not willing to be seen as corny or stupid. And you brought up the fight scenes. These fight scenes are ridiculous. They're all CGI, but James Wan understands if you're going to do a CGI fight scene, it should at least be insane. And it's insane.
For sure. It really gets wilder than I remembered. Again, I for some reason, I maybe just like half watched it the first time, but this second time around, I was just like surprised left and right by how it really felt like an epic kind of story. And I don't know how much of that is helped along by the fact that I truly have zero history or love or past with the character of Aquaman, you know, like
that'll be okay.
I mean, all the Superman, the Batman, Wonder Woman stood on its own because I didn't really have much of a past with that and all, but everything else, I'm like, oh, it's the Justice League. It should be the Justice League, and then I'm punched in the gut, when I saw that back in the day. But this was just like, it's Jason Momoa. I do enjoy him. It's everyone else there that I like. It's James Wan. It's just underwater Superman stuff that I don't have to be like nitpicky as much as I had been with something like Batman vs Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So as it stands, as the literally the only Aquaman that I know, I'm a fan. I would say I very much enjoyed.
What's interesting is that I am not a comics Aquaman guy. I don't know. I mean, like, I have a functioning knowledge of the base tier. The villains who are in this movie I was aware of before I saw this movie,
Mm-hmm.
like, but I mostly am a fan of Aquaman from the 70s and 80s cartoons from Super Friends and the Aquaman cartoon that used to be on Boomerang, and my sister specifically, she loved Aquaman. She loved the Aquaman cartoon. And it's really fun. It's almost like an Adam West 60s camp appeal. It's self-aware. This movie mostly doesn't have that, but there are moments where I got really excited to see a stupid thing from the cartoon be literally translated into live action, which I won't get into until spoilers. The audience at home, if you're listening to this, I cannot believe in the year 2024 I am sitting here and telling you that even though it is imperfect, even though a lot of its camp doesn't work for me, even though some of the performances are bad, go watch Aquaman. I liked it. James Wan is a good director.
I think we've never not said that on this podcast. If we've ever run into James Wan in any of our main segments, he has been a star for real.
I do want to shout out, we have not mentioned Yahya Abdul-Mateen III, a guy who I feel like I'm constantly bringing up on this show, and you're always like, who are you talking about? That I forgot like half the people that were going to be in this were in it. Willem Dafoe, when he showed up, I was like, whoa, Willem Dafoe is in this? And he was in the Snyder Cut, I think, so I should have known that.
Yeah, dude.
Dolph Lundgren, I definitely didn't know he was going to be in this. That was insane.
And he's like, he's not doing his usual, like, what he's famous for. He's just like kind of doing a regular stoic role in this as a monarch. I liked it a lot.
No, I'd love to know if he was a DC fan or if he was just like, I understand the actors were paid. Because
I
what
wonder.
a weird role for him to take.
I would love to get into a little bit more of the details here with you.
I kind of feel like we have to. I keep scrolling through my notes looking for things that are not spoilers, and it's mostly just me reacting to stuff. Yeah, I guess let's go ahead and call spoilers on Aquaman.
Where do you want to start here? I mean, it is so... I will say, the casting of Tamir Morrison as Arthur's dad, pretty great. I thought that worked kind of wonderfully.
What about Ken doll Tamir Morrison as Arthur's dad?
Weird Guardians 2 Tamir Morrison, where he's just like very
that's not even
smooth.
That's not even fair to... I think that the Guardians 2 de-aging looks a lot better than this.
I had flashes of young Kurt, I will say. I don't know. It got weirder as I went, I will say. The more he was just like in 80s clothes, and I was like, what a weird... Why are they staying here? I don't know.
Well, it's especially jarring because Nicole Kidman they didn't do anything to, basically.
Do you have to, man?
I mean, I'm not saying they had to, but it makes it all the more jarring that she, like, when you see Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer next to each other and they're both young because they both have aged, in a way that, not that Nicole Kidman doesn't look older, but she looks a lot more like she did in the 80s than any of the other people do.
Sure, yeah, that is true. That is true.
I find it a little unnerving, but I can live with it. It's fine.
What about little boy Superman origin aquarium stuff?
This is what I'm talking about, dude. Like, he has seen Superman so many times. Because this story so much, and especially the beginning, so much follows the arc of that first Superman movie. Because there's not really... I was thinking about this when it came up. There's not really a point of that scene being in the movie. There's no consequence that comes... It's not like Man of Steel that milks for 2 hours.
Sure, oh my god, yeah.
You shouldn't have saved that bus full of kids, Clark, or whatever Kevin Costner's saying in that movie before he gets tornadoed.
Oh, he should have gotten tornadoed earlier. That's bad advice, Kevin Costner. Jesus Christ.
I think Kevin Costner is fine in that movie, but it's not Pa Kent. It's not what it is. This is not the Man of Steel cast, but...
It's not, but it also now makes me think about how... Do literally 0 characters die in this movie? I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
I just want to point out, I think it is a positive that scene is in the movie, because it just is it's like a beat. It's just a beat to have in the movie that is a classic beat, that is
they don't
nice
on
character beat. Not everything has to be... And his classmate grew up to be Robin, and it's just a nice little... cool that he's talking to fish in the aquarium.
Those 2 bullies who are 3 times his size and 10 years older. Like, oh, look at the guy, kid can talk to fish. They don't make it more than it needs to be.
I will follow your line of thought now to... Yeah, I was thinking that. I thought for sure Nicole Kidman was dead in this movie. Like, I thought she was going to come back and immediately get killed, which I'm glad that she didn't, because I really enjoyed, despite Weird Plastic Tamara Morrison, their love story. I liked how much time was spent on it, and that the final note of the movie is them being reunited, that it really has that through line.
Yeah, he still goes out to that dock every day. Like, it makes up for the super duper dull main romance that they have throughout the whole movie. Knowing that what we're getting in the new Aquaman, from the one trailer that I saw, it looks more like a buddy movie with Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson. That's what I wanted the whole time that we were in this first one. But I know we couldn't really do that for obvious plot reasons yet, but I was just like, whatever. She's here. She's like, Dolph Lundgren, Dad, please don't, or whatever. I don't, whatever. I was less impressed by her whole thing.
I started this movie being like, Amber Heard is not good in this. And then she slowly grew on me, actually, because I don't think she's a bad actor in general. Like, I have liked her in things, but at the beginning she's really wooden, and then I think when we get down to Atlantis, she becomes a lot more interesting. The problem is that she and Momoa don't have chemistry. And
that is 100% right.
And I think that I read that Juan wanted to recast her, but Elon Musk had a fit and wouldn't let it happen.
Oh God!
Whatever.
Why did Elon Musk have a say in this movie?
Because he was dating her for a a while.
Well, I know, but I guess it's like a favor to Elon Musk.
It doesn't matter. I don't want to get into all that. And I was like, I know. Like, Amber Heard's in this movie. I don't want to get into all that. But
in the movie, as it stands, as an individual role here, I agree, not a ton of chemistry. By the time they jumped out of the plane into the Sahara Desert and they try to do like the quirky joke scene before they get to the other place, I was already like, this is too far, movie. I am now checked out completely of this relationship here.
But she has a great moment with Patrick Wilson where there's actual tension between them. I think all of her stuff with Patrick Wilson is actually really strong in a way that most of the time when you have that kind of, love triangle, but that's not really a love triangle dynamic in a superhero movie, it's really boring and stupid.
Yes,
and
agreed.
Patrick Wilson is enough of a nuanced character in this. Atlantis feels really fleshed out before Aquaman gets there, which helps a lot in making him feel like an outsider, because a lot of the time you get somewhere and it's like the kingdom was just waiting for the Aquaman character to show up.
Yes,
the town
exactly.
was waiting for the stranger to ride in. And here, it does not feel like that at all. Her outfit that she wears, that like weird coral white dress thing that she wears watching the arena fight between Patrick Wilson and Aquaman, that is such a cool outfit design, and it's even cooler in motion. That is such a great example of the way that this movie takes advantage of its underwater setting when it's in there, and really it feels like a living, breathing society, and not just like, oh, but we made ancient Greece underwater.
Dude, how much I thought about... I know you have not seen the cult classic, The Little Mermaid, the new live-action Little Mermaid. But the fact that the underwater stuff looks so much better than the little... Like, years removed from Disney saying, here's all the money in the world to make special effects underwater, and Aquaman still, like, totally beats it by a mile. I was very impressed by that. All the hair... everyone's long hair that is underwater, and I mean, even the warbly like talking effects that they have on their voices when they're underwater, it's not like so distracting that I'm like, all right, I get it, they're underwater, but it's still everything added in a really great way when they were all underwater, that I kind of wished that the scene when we got to like surface world scenes, I was like, let's go back underwater for a while. Let me see what Defoe is doing underwater.
Totally. I think that you could spend more time in Atlantis in this movie, even though I like the treasure hunting angle, and we'll get into that more in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Before we leave behind Mera and Aquaman, because I want to note that I think despite the lack of chemistry of the leads, another strength of this movie being more classically minded, having a formulaic, but not as a derogatory word, arc, is that you still have these beats that make me more invested in that relationship, that don't make the entire thing feel like a wasted effort. Because in most movies, you would just have the characters that would technically just be on an adventure together, and they would have their little quippy scenes, and then they'd kiss at the end, and you'd be like, that's just nothing. And they have these little moments, like, where she's talking about, like, in this, like, Jane Austen monologue about how she has to marry for the good of Atlantis, and the good of the family.
When they're in the cargo plane, the cargo plane scene, yes.
And then later, when he has a similar moment of vulnerability where he's like, I am not fit to be a king, I am not a good leader, I'm not a good role model, you don't want me to do this. They both have these moments of vulnerability with each other, in which I think they both individually are giving good performances. It's just that they don't work super well together. So that, I'm invested in that dynamic enough in that way, even if I don't really like the leads together as actors with their chemistry. By the time we get to that third act kiss, the big kiss moment, it's still kind of orgasmic, because it's this big, like, Juan has a eye for a great visual, and the music swells, and all the explosions, and the camera sweeps around them, and the hair, and, like, she's got her leg up on him. It's just, like, it's still a strong moment that is propped up by the competence of the filmmaking, which makes you wonder how transcendent it would be if the actors actually had chemistry.
Oh, man. Well, we get what we can take from a movie like this, and, James Wan's trying his damn best, so I do agree that there's enough to feel... It's not, like, so out of left field when they finally do get to that kiss that I'm, like, totally taken out. I was already like, I'll give her props where the props are due, but the way you said it, where it's like, apart they really shine, but together they kind of don't really hit as high... I think that's fair. It makes me interested to see how they're going to go about it with the second one here. I don't know
absolutely
how much of that has changed in the time that they've shot this movie and edited it and re-edited it and reshot it and done all the extra stuff, but it's crazy to say that I'm looking forward to seeing their relationship in the sequel a lot, because that's not something that I had really thought about at all until I rewatched this for the show.
I think an interesting counterpoint to this is Wonder Woman, which this is a way better movie than Wonder Woman, by the way. It's crazy how much of a better movie this is than Wonder Woman. A movie that I think is
original
fine.
Wonder Woman. You were just saying before, Wonder Woman was such a huge moment in the DC timeline here. That was the era of like, oh, they're turning it all around, and it was like nominated for Oscars and stuff, and it was very big moment. And I guess I haven't seen Wonder Woman since it was probably in theaters, which is, it's been a little soured by Wonder Woman 1984. All my memories.
Yeah.
It's hard to not have those two linked. But now that I'm thinking about it, if I just had Shazam and Aquaman, I think that's really, and it's kind of a similar. I like Shazam for a lot of the reasons I like Aquaman. It's that it has, again, that similar formula of like reluctant hero has to learn to take this position of power against their own judgment of their lack of maturity or their history with that power and that responsibility. But then ultimately, they get to have their moments in their own ways and reach their conclusions in their satisfying ways. But now I'm thinking about Wonder Woman again, and it's like, I did like it. I do remember liking it. I probably liked it a good amount more than you if I'm still trying to hold on to that memory, but I think I might watch Aquaman over Wonder Woman as it stands now.
I bring up Wonder Woman as a example of Chris Pine is delivering a great performance in that movie. He's so funny in that movie. And charming and swashbuckling. It still doesn't do anything for the romance because not only do the leads not have chemistry, but in addition to that, you don't have a narrative support holding their romance up enough. Like, they are technically on an adventure together, but they aren't having those really strong beats that are telling me a lot about the interiority of each character as individuals. They each have, like, lip service of an arc. You just compare the scene where they're in the town dancing in Wonder Woman, which is one of the best scenes in Wonder Woman. I don't think that's anywhere near as well done as the scene where Mira goes up when they're in Sicily and is learning about all of the wonderful things in the market.
Yeah.
She does the magic with the dolphin and the fountain. That's such a charming little moment that is, again, it's not afraid to be a little cheesy, so it makes you feel better about the characters and their dynamic and where the story is going.
Yeah, definitely. I almost forgot about that little Sicily montage where they're kind of warming up to each other a lot more, and it is a montage. They do not speak at all in that moment after the dolphin scene. I think they kind of have their silent moments of discovery together and laughing and smiling. So I think that also definitely helps a lot with their moments that shine through.
Speaking of montages, this movie has a good few, and the montage where Black Manta is making his suit, I think, is terrific, especially because we get to know that character so well before he ever puts on the suit, which I think that is kind of a common trend in contemporary superhero media, where you're like, oh, well, the guy has to earn his iconic look. Daredevil has to earn the suit by the end of the first season or whatever. And that's a bad example because that's actually a good show.
Him laser blasting his helmet and being like, this is going to need to be a bigger helmet. Us knowing that Black Manta's helmet is insanely large and that eventually we will get to that like super long neck style Manta suit.
Yeah. I don't love how that character gets one cool action sequence and is immediately like disposed of for the rest of the movie. He really should be in the third act of this movie. I don't know how he would fit, but he should be in it.
They have a great like commando sequence where they have a brawl. He does the whole he wraps the boulder chain around his neck and blasts his own helmet open. It was very good. And then we just forget about him until literally the after credit scene. And I truly don't think that's enough. I think he should have had a lot more of a direct hand in Patrick Wilson's schemes, because it's like they just kind of fit him in there because it's like, oh, we're supposed to have Black Mantas here.
Yep. He goes and he has the Abyss Zoom conference out in the middle of the water, which is cool. And it doesn't feel, even though they do some stuff like that, it doesn't feel super connected like you were saying. And I wish that it did, because each of their things individually are cool, and when he gives, like, the Lovecraft Cities of Men speech, right, when he shows up in the suit for the first time, that is so awesome.
The two bad guys here, they are technically working together for the same general common goal of, like, let's get Aquaman out of here. But it feels like it's just so conflicting at the same time. We have all these, like, Aqua Commandos in their cool stormtrooper suits and their weird, like, coral gun rifle things. And then it feels like they're battling each other for screen time instead of it being like, we should have had some weird show. And I mean, obviously that weird showdown is going to happen in the second one, and Patrick Wilson's going to be like, no, Jason Momoa, I actually do appreciate you as a brother. And then they're going to, do their whole thing there. But I felt sad for Black Mantis more than anything, because he's got the cool, like, blade gauntlet thing. His dad gives the whole backstory before he definitely is 100% responsible for his own death in that submarine. It's very...
I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know how I feel about Aquaman leaving that guy to die, but also, that's part of the arc. He's like, I left, I killed a man because of ego, because I wouldn't save him. And by the end of this movie, that's not something he would be willing to do again. So, like, at first when that happened, I was like, oh, I don't know about that. That's like Superman maybe not being supposed to save the school bus of kids.
But that clocks for that character, at least, like you said, at first. He is more of an anti-hero. He's not part of the Justice League yet.
Yes, he is.
Doing his own...
This is after Justice League. This is explicitly after Justice League.
This is after Justice League.
Because remember, Mara's like, you took down Darkseid with the Justice League. And he's like, I'm not a hero, blah, blah, blah. Let me drink beer with my dad.
Damn, I totally remember that line in this second time I've seen this movie. Jeez, I need to wake up. Sheesh. I'm very satisfied with this movie, removed from Batman v Superman and Justice League, even though he kind of has whatever roles in each. But I'd watch this alone any day before I even thought about watching the Snyder Cut again.
Yeah, I mean, Snyder Cut is a movie that I said on this show that I enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would. But it's not something I ever feel compelled to see again. Like I facetiously alluded to up top, I think about Black Adam way more than I think about the Snyder Cut. I think about Shazam! Fury of the Gods way more than I think about the Snyder Cut.
When we inevitably do the Snyder-thon, and I'm saying that on air right now as a torture device for the future us.
I wish you could see the face I'm making right now.
Because we would have to watch the Justice League and then the Snyder Cut back to back.
There's no segue for this. Action. I want to talk about the action sequences because...
Oh yeah, let's.
There's so much cool stuff in this movie that I have like just a list of things, and I'm like, that's rad, that's rad, that's
Lay
rad,
it on me.
That's rad. Okay. Willem Dafoe riding a big fish into battle against a submarine.
Oh yeah.
100%, I'm on that. The way that when they are fighting underwater with their tridents, the bubbles and water displacement act like blur motion lines behind their weapons. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. The bit where Mira creates a vortex of air underwater that traps Patrick Wilson and makes him fall dozens of feet and then drops a ton of water onto him through that void. Incredible. Like, what a well-conceived, well-told action beat, because that's the kind of thing, like, I think all the time about, and I'm sorry, I just totally cut you off.
No.
The beat in No Way Home, where Doctor Strange and Spider-Man are fighting, and Doctor Strange does a portal above Spider-Man and a portal below Spider-Man, and Spider-Man falls through it infinitely like you would in the Portal video game. And how many times have you thought that would be so cool to see in a movie? And I bet when you were watching that movie, you didn't think this is so cool to see in a movie, because it's not executed in a visually interesting or exciting way. It's just a thing that happens flatly in the movie. And here, that vortex is something I never would have conceived of. It's such an insane idea that is also told so excitingly and so satisfyingly and so clearly that I can actually follow it and be into it.
I love that too. Again, another major point that I fully forgot about until I rewatched this. Once she did that, and I kind of started to wake up a little bit more about how creatively the underwater fight scenes are, even just down to the impact, the feeling of when their tridents are smashing into each other. It adds with that kind of motion blur-ish effect that they already have swinging, but then you have, like, the environment itself, their hair underwater reacting to the shock wave of each, like, incredibly powerful feeling hit. It doesn't feel sluggish in underwater. It feels like very fluid and underwater and powerful. And then once she does that like vortex move and kind of expands what the idea of that 3D space is for a fight scene underwater like that, I think it's phenomenal. And I hate Black Panther 2. I think Black Panther 2 sucks so bad with their underwater stuff, considering how fun and good the battle at the end, where it's like the fleets are in play and everyone's shooting at everyone else, torpedoes and water lasers and plasma beams, and everything is going crazy while there's a melee between the two airs. It's like it's so flawless for a battle scene of that scale. I don't know. Have we ever seen James Wan do a scene of that caliber, of that scale, where it could very easily get lost in itself, but like you were saying before, everything seems to be working as it should. Each piece is working individually, so that when we cut from trident fight to ships clashing to giant Lovecraft Kraken style depth of the trenches monster doing its thing, we're not feeling seasick down there. We're on top of everything that's happening.
And in addition to how visually, interestingly, and clearly that's told, that contributes to that, it's also that the storytelling is so clear. They establish earlier in the movie that he can talk to animals, and I love how literal the translation of the rings coming out of him into the fish is. Because in a lot of movies, it would not be like that. In a lot of movies, it would be like maybe like waves or something. But it's like, no, it's just the rings from the comics, from the cartoons. I love that. And then one of his big moments in that third act is, I talked to all these fish and they're on my team, including Cthulhu, baby. Like,
yeah, dude. Oh, great design on that big Cthulhu monster too.
Absolutely.
Very like, Keeper of the Keys style. Verbally, they're seemingly very educated down there in the bottom of the trenches, but a tank, if you've ever seen one, when it comes up to the surface, or the mid-ocean, wherever that battle was happening. Big fan there. No, Superman doesn't care. Superman's like, it's in the water, whatever. I can hear it all happening, but I'm not going down there, whatever.
Well, and then when it comes to the melee that you were mentioning, the fact that at the beginning when they fight, Patrick Wilson breaks Aquaman's trident, he celebrates, and you're like, okay, so that's a definitive victory. The breaking of the trident, whether or not Aquaman is dead, yeah, it's a symbolic victory. And so then, not only is that like a great beat in that earlier fight, but then you go into the third act, and guess what? Aquaman breaks Patrick Wilson's trident. And in a movie where you don't kill your main villain, the fact that you have established a symbolic victory over him that still is satisfying to the audience and tells the audience, okay, so now I know that Patrick Wilson has been defeated. He is definitively Dunzo Magunzo. That's great. It seems stupid to pat the movie on the head for, like, basic storytelling, but you know what? A lot of movies now would not give you those beats, and Juan, again, is such a competent storyteller that he is making sure that is all in there.
I'm a big fan of that as well, that whole... And again, it has me way more looking forward to Patrick Wilson and his, what his character is going to evolve into in the sequel here, where he was just like, you've gotten your symbolic victory, but I want you to kill me. Like, this means so much to me that I don't care that you've got the TKO, but I need you to stab me through the chest now because I feel so utterly defeated. It's great character moments all around when he can kind of stand back up and accept his exile with a, he's not like he's got his chin up a little bit by the end there when he's like, this is kind of what I deserve, and I'm kind of seeing everything in a light that I have been blinded to previously. He's a pretty blatant villain all around. He stages a false flag on Atlantis using a nuclear submarine. Like, that's pretty out there.
I like his little beat at the end, where he kind of sobers up and his mom gives him a hug.
Yeah.
I like how much they are brothers textually, because it's really easy to be like, oh, they're brothers, but it's really did just treat him like any other bad guy. But it is more complicated than that, because they're brothers, and again, it's taking advantage of that. Like you have been saying, excited to see their relationship develop further in the second one, whose name I don't remember.
The Way of Water.
The Way
Aquaman,
of Water.
The Way of Water.
Is there a world in which you believe that Patrick Wilson is younger than Jason Momoa?
Absolutely not. When he started calling him little brother, I was like, right, okay. That was like all the way at the end too, and I was like, nope. Finally broke the immersion about the underwater Atlantean people. Little brother, no chance.
I'll accept that humans turned into crab people for some reason. Sure.
Yeah. We've got the trench tribe that's just like piranha people or whatever. There's that horror angle that we were teasing at before.
That's a great sequence. That's another, going back to my laundry list of action beats. And it ties in with you talking about how cool the water stuff in this is.
Oh, you talking about the flares?
The flares?
The wide shot of the flares underwater? Dude.
The flares with all of them swarming around the flare, that's cool enough on its own. But then the stroke of genius, whoever, if it was Juan, if it was the DP, if it was just a guy in the visual effects department, whoever figured out that, we should have there be lightning going, and you can see the gradient of how far the lightning penetrates down into the water, but eventually it doesn't even make it down. It's just pitch black, because that's the point.
Pure darkness.
Oh, that's such a cool visual, that kind of like the water vortex. Obviously, like, conceptually, I understand all the science behind why water would be that way, but I would never have thought to put it in a movie like that. And you know how I like water movies, Seamus, and this movie does things that I've never seen done in a water movie.
It's kind of again, I'm floored in my revisiting here that you're right. The most famous high budget popular water movies that we know don't do some of the cool things that they think of for this movie. And it's all hype material for a movie that is still like it's a 5-year-old movie or whatever, and we're just finally being like, wow, they really nailed water. We're so uninterested with how water is treated in big budget movies now, and especially we're uninterested in superhero movies, but it's just such a surprising middle of the DCEU franchise treat to have Aquaman just kind of be banging.
Totally agree. We can't even get into the whole, I think we're running low on time. We can't even get into all the little beats of the Sicily fight with the crazy CGI camera moves and Miro wine bending and all that stuff is
rad.
Crazy. Aquaman saves people again. Like, I really like that that's in a superhero movie is explicitly Aquaman going out of his way to save people in the middle of the fight, which doesn't happen in superhero movies anymore. Again, he's seen Superman a million times.
It felt so much like, even having not seen, my only Superman is Man of Steel. Through it all, I was like, this is what any Superman should feel like. It feels very powerful, the way that he does pretty much everything. The way he swims, dives, fights with his hands, fights with weapons, rips out the water from the water suits of the stormtrooper guys constantly, loving all that. I was ready for lame Aquaman, because that's just what all the jokes are. All the jokes from the time I could even remember Aquaman have just been like, oh, he does stuff in the water. Oh, he could talk to the goldfish. Dope. Great. But everything defied my expectations of what this superhero movie specifically would be. And now I guess I like Aquaman. What a weird... I never in a million years would have thought that I would say I like Aquaman.
No, I was really kind of dreading watching this movie for the show. I was like, I just better get it out of the way. And I had a blast. A few giant things we won't get to elaborate on. This is mostly a treasure hunting movie. Didn't talk about that at all.
We did not.
We didn't talk about the fact that they go to the journey to the center of the earth. Like,
oh my
Kong
god,
is
they go
hanging
to
out
Skull
down
Island,
there.
yeah.
That's insane. Like the Jules Verne stuff. Randall Park in 2 scenes
Oh
of this
my
movie.
god, yeah,
Why
what?
is he here?
I was gonna maybe ask you, you're somebody who watched those cartoons apparently. Is that not a character that's established? Like
I'm
Black
sure-
Mantis's sidekick?
It's Black Manta, Seamus. It is Black Manta
I'm
like a
sorry,
manta ray.
I keep saying mantis like a like a praying mantis. So different than the type of animal that he is going for.
I don't know anything about. Seamus, what do you say we wrap up with Aquaman, a movie, again, I'm so delighted that I was forced to see for this show. And go ahead and move on over to our pop culture reference.
Let's do it. For today's pop culture reference, we're going to be talking about Mickey Mouse and the public domain. With a Mickey... with a Mickey... It's getting Italian. It's horrible.
What,
Italian Mario Mickey laugh, which is
Italian-
honestly kind of close. No one's ever made that sound before. that includes whatever Italian dub of the Mickey Mouse Playhouse show that there was. With Mickey Mouse entering the public domain as of January 1st, we wanted to take a step back and discuss not only what this means for the current usage of rights of the character, but also the decades-long history between Disney and copyright. In 1989, the United States adopted the Berne Commission, an international contract outlining terms of copyright first established in 1886, largely at the behest of Victor Hugo. Seeing this as an opportunity for further change, the Walt Disney Company and several other media organizations began lobbying U.S. Congress for copyright extensions. The lobbying campaign eventually resulted in the Sonny Bono Copyright Term Extension Act of 1998, which extended copyright in the United States significantly.
Previously, under the Copyright Act of 1976, which Disney had also lobbied in favor of, a work of corporate authorship was protected for 75 years from publication or 100 years after creation, whichever is shorter. With the new legislation, that was extended to 95 years from publication or 120 years after creation, whichever is shorter. Disney's hard lobbying for the bill was specifically motivated by the desire to keep 1928's short Steamboat Willie, and therefore Mickey Mouse, out of the public domain. Because of this, the bill is often referred to derogatorily as the Mickey Mouse Protection Act.
Now, despite the 40-year delay, Steamboat Willie and Mickey Mouse have indeed entered the public domain as of January 1st, 2024. A plethora of Mickey projects have been announced since the beginning of the year, many of which would have likely fallen under fair use as parody anyway before Mickey was in the public domain. But just because Steamboat Willie is in the public domain, that doesn't mean all Mickey is fair game. Later iterations of the character are still owned by Disney, and while elements such as gloves and eye whites fall under the realm of artistic license, copyright experts caution against adding too many of these details into your own Mickey creations until Disney versions sporting them become public domain as well.
Steamboat Willie's version of Mickey is also still trademarked by Disney, meaning that it cannot be used in a way that may make consumers believe that the media they are interacting with is indeed a genuine Disney creation. Many have speculated that the inclusion of Steamboat Willie in the logo used by Walt Disney Animation Studios since 2006 is to strengthen their claim and bolster their ability to confront claims that may fall under trademark infringement.
Oh, what do you think about this Steamboat Willie horror movie that was announced about 0.5 seconds after the new year?
I don't
Does that...
care.
I feel like it's... I don't like it. I'm not a fan. They did the same thing with Winnie the Pooh a couple of years ago when that entered the public domain too, and it was such a big fuss for like January, and then no one ever really heard about it again, you know?
People will figure out actually interesting ways that are not just for shock value to use Mickey soon enough. Because again, as we mentioned, so many of these would have already fallen under parody anyway. Not to say that you want to risk getting sued by the mouse, but it's so frustrating that a company that built up their entire legacy, taking works that are in the public domain and adapting them, have been the source of so much delaying of other iconic stories entering the public domain. I hope that people actually go out and just make, like, you know, good Mickey cartoons and stuff. And not to say I really care about there being more Mickey, but it's symbolic of an era passing, that even Disney, with all of its money and all of its lobbying, eventually does have to bow to the will of the people.
Yeah, if you have ever seen anyone even attempt commission fan art, pin, apparel, bags, literally anything that could be, you know, seen as whatever minuscule threat to Disney profits, the lawyers descend so fast. There are people that their whole entire life is being the crony who goes to sniff out who's breaking the copyright, the trademark infringement things that are they love to shut down. But now, you know, this is a little bit that we're seeing now. I think it's only a year or two more before the color accurate Mickey Mouse becomes public domain too, then, isn't it?
Yes, and there's also some, I didn't include this in the reference, but there's some contention about whether or not there is a poster for Steamboat Willie that includes Mickey's iconic colors.
Oh.
But it's unclear, copyright experts are unclear about whether or not that technically falls in the public domain for some reason. I don't know how that all works. So, if people are advised to stay away from it, even though it might technically be legal.
As a word of advice for anyone, don't try to go up against Disney lawyers. They own a lot of stuff, but again, only a couple more years, and then the Disney dam is really going to break with their iconic characters, their re-entry into public domain for even some of them. I'm looking forward to, like you said, hopefully some smart adaptations of these well-known characters and ideas. So really what this is for, it's like for people to make horror movies and for people to make weird porn, and it's like there's no in between for a minute until somebody is smart about it. So
well and bluntly put, Seamus Conley.
We say it like it is here on the Pop Culture Reference Podcast. Soon to have a Steamboat Willie logo, of course.
That'd be really funny, actually. We should commission an artist to do a special
you
one-off.
And Steamboat Willie?
That's good. To have seen Steamboat Willie with glasses.
Oh, yeah, there you go. We could have somebody come on and be Steamboat Willie as a guest, and we'll ask all of the Disney questions that we've been dying to ask.
That's pretty good.
We'd have to have somebody be able to do that voice consistently for like an hour, though. So we got to pick that.
That's when it's Walt Disney Mickey Mouse. So he's just kind of living up here. He's not really.
Oh wait, Steamboat Willie doesn't even say anything. He just whistles.
I think he does say a few things, because
no.
You've seen the full cartoon, right? You've seen full.
Yeah, it's been
when he's
a while,
beating
but
animals to death and like using a cow as a xylophone. I think he says like Minnie and things like that. I don't think it's anything.
Oh, because I was gonna say if he just whistles, you know, for all we know, Mickey's voice could be down here, and it was the silent era, you know.
With the power of your imagination and the public domain, Seamus, Mickey's voice still can sound.
It could be anything. It could be anything. But with that, what do you say we wrap it up and we go save the rec center?
Let's see. Save the rec center! Now it's time to save the rec center, where we bring you our weekly rec. Amendations.
Okay, there. I really did think you cut out for a second. That was going to be the funniest edit of all time, where I'm just like waiting for it. You're just like fully, your internet went out or something, and I'm like, this is a hilarious bit, Garrett. I would have been sitting here for 20 minutes waiting for you to come back in with the mendation.
But Seamus, what do you have for us this week? In the new year, the first rec center of 2024.
Yes, the first rec center of 2024. And this is and wouldn't you be surprised, Garrett? It's a video game, huh? Imagine that.
I
Fancy
almost
that.
said, what video game are you recommending this week? But
I cannot tell you how enchanted I am with Katamari Damacy Reroll. Are you aware of the Katamari games, Garrett?
You should see the face I'm making right now.
Are you completely bewildered? Do you
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. It's originally a PS2 game. This is the remaster for PS4. It is a... I don't even know how to describe it. It's like it's one of the weirdest Japanese games I've ever played. You are the prince of the cosmos, and after what I believe is a drunken bender, your father, the king of the cosmos, destroys all of the stars in the sky. So you're just a little guy, and you have to roll up everything on Earth into a giant ball and make new stars. Now, that sounds like nonsense, and I can hear your silence thinking, yeah, all right, this is another one of those games. But, Garrett, the satisfaction of starting as just a little tiny guy, the size of like let's say a domino, and then rolling up exponentially until you are literally the size of like the Earth is one of the most satisfying levels of gameplay I've ever found in a game. It is pure like nonsense pretty much story wise, but it's just, have you ever wanted to just be a little guy and turn into a bigger guy as you go and kind of roll up literally anything in your path like a weird snowball that is just growing and growing? It is pure entertainment. The music is phenomenal. It's just the most bizarre Japanese pop music you've ever heard. And there's a split screen mode, Garrett, and I'm making you play this with me when we are at your place next, because it's nothing but joy, Garrett. I can't recommend it more to you specifically.
Here's the thing, I'm still making the face, but now I have one eyebrow raised in
That's
curiosity.
all you need. That's all you need. Trust me, I was unsure about this back in the day as well, but it's phenomenal. It's so fun and goofy. It's very humor based, but also it's like when they give you a 20-minute timer, those 20 minutes go by in no time at all, because you want to roll up everything. You want to roll up more, man. Once you're rolling up like pieces of continent and islands, it's there's nothing like it, man. I'm telling you. But what do you have, probably a lot more conventional than mine, to save the rec sitter this week, Garrett?
Well, you can always say, what movie do you have to recommend this week, Garrett? A film I have not seen in about 10 years, I would think. Really liked it back in high school, was very impressed by it. It was like a real adult movie to me, and now I'm like, yeah, that's still a really good, adult drama. And that is LA Confidential.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
I've been on a real unconventional Christmas movie, New Year's movies kick over the last few weeks, and LA Confidential is technically set at Christmas. And I was like, that sounds like a good fit. And I was just blown away by it. It is so beautifully shot, immaculately acted and directed, and it has so much to say about Hollywood and art and love and the American dream. The amount of time that has elapsed between the time when it was made and the time when it was set. But also, it says a lot very presciently about the time between it was made and now. In the last 25 years, it has done nothing but get better. It has aged immaculately, except for the fact that Kevin Spacey is one of the three main characters.
Right.
It's not for the faint of heart. It is much more violent than I remember it being, and I remembered it being pretty violent. It's a banger. It's the best neo-noir. I couldn't recommend it more heartily.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and second that one as well. That is one of the best movies about Los Angeles, maybe. I didn't even remember that it was a Christmas movie, too, or semi-whatever, but an incredible film nonetheless.
But I think that wraps us up for this week's episode of Pop Culture Reference. If you want to reach the show in the new year, you can find us at PCR_podcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can like us on Facebook. We're posting on social media again. We're back, baby. We are after
2024.
2024, that's our New Year's resolution, is we're going to keep posting on social media.
Yes, we're finally in season 2 of our own show, so we're going to keep up.
You remember like a million years ago when we were like, actually, this is the end of the first season, that didn't mean a single thing.
Nope.
Nope, nobody needs to remember either. Nobody. Praying that nobody who has listened to this episode has listened that far back.
Oh God, let's hope not. This is season 2, starting in 2024.
Oh, no.
You count it. We're gonna bring back the Nightmare Alley bit. We're gonna talk about.
I do love the Nightmare Alley bit. That is one of the best bits that we have on the show.
Oh God.
Next week we're covering Nightmare Alley. So
starring the Kurt Russell twins.
Starring Kurt Russell twins, that's true. So yes, in actuality, we will be covering the full season of Monarch Legacy of Monsters on Apple Television Plus.
I'm very excited actually to officially dip our toes back into the Zillaverse on the show officially with this new one. This is the first time we've really come back to it since episode 150. So, man,
in the last 3 episodes.
Hey, it's felt like a million years to us, man.
That's true.
It's been a long time.
We don't usually take a hiatus this long, so welcome back, everybody. I hope you.
Season 2, man, we're back.
Shut up. Oh boy, everybody, we will see you next week.
Adios, amigos. First one of 2024. Woo!